We got it! 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 We finally got it! PvP scaling in the beta was a massive topic. And by massive, I mean massively controversial. A lot of people, me included, thought that the scaling changes felt too drastic. The problem was we couldn't really check that. Just looking at some in-game values wouldn't really tell you the full story. If you see that someone's getting hit for more damage, that could be because of armor, that could be because of the weapons that were used or the stat distribution, that doesn't really necessarily tell us something about the level scaling. And that is what I'm here for today. Ahoy, my name is Duke Sloth, and today we're going to look into actual data that is relatively cleaned up regarding level scaling and PvP scaling in the open beta. We ran a variety of different tests to figure out fully how the scaling was changed and how intense it is or isn't now. Before I explain the different tests and results, a huge shout out to the 4 people who helped me: Krymore, who actually rushed to level 15 for me, Miguel the God, Rittzy, and Achi. Thank you all so much for your help with this, you guys are the best. And also I'll be linking Ritzy's channel at the end, you should check him out. So, how did we test the PvP scaling? Well, first of all, I had to find a weapon that everyone can use, which was a grey level 15 hatchet that could just be traded around between everyone. This was our baseline to see how scaling changes across levels if the items don't change at all. And this is what this baseline looked like. Here you can see all of our player levels from 15 to 25, 28 and 36, and I, as the target of the attacks, was level 25. At the beginning, everyone had 5 strength and no points invested into any attributes at all. What's interesting is that you'll see the level scaling of the weapon here. So the displayed damage under the gear score was different depending on the level. On level 15 it was 122, whereas on level 36 it was 170. This number, this change in base damage, however, is accounted for in the level scaling, and that is still the case. So when any of them would hit me, no matter what level, where we're both not wearing any armor at all, the light attack would always deal 176 or 177 damage. Using medium or heavy armor also didn't change this at all, the values stayed consistent. On the other hand, when I used the same hatchet against these players, the numbers did change. I don't have the level 15 data here because I messed up and didn't respec my strength before that, but if you look at the other numbers, we'll still get a very clear picture. While my displayed weapon damage is always the same, the damage that I deal to the enemies, which you see in yellow here, increases with their level. Against a level 22 player, I deal 206 damage. Against a level 28 player, I deal 227 damage. And against a level 36 player, I deal 261 damage. So considering I'm using the same weapon against all of these, the scaling system is actually giving me a little bit more of a fighting chance against higher level players here by increasing my damage. However, it's not a massive increase. We see a 34 damage increase between level 28 to 36, which is still a pretty high level difference. I ran the same test against the level 36 player with a level appropriate weapon for myself, level 25 weapon, and in that case I dealt 310 damage. How that compares against that player's damage we'll see a little bit later. So far we found that the damage when not using any attribute points and using the same weapon is actually the same for all of the enemies attacking me, but if I attack them, their level makes a difference for the amount of damage that they take. So the higher their level is, the more damage they take. But what if we now start using the attribute points that we have? We don't need to look at Constitution here because it doesn't affect the damage in any direction. We know that from previous testing, but we obviously need to look at Strength. Now at this point a quick disclaimer. Some of you have told me that you're sometimes a bit overwhelmed by the number of spreadsheets I go through, and the following spreadsheets that you'll see right here are not something you need to fully understand or remember if you don't want to. If you like spreadsheets and you like looking at the data in detail, you can do that. But this is not necessary to understand for the end result. There's only one important takeaway from this, and I can show that with one example. Look at the stats here. We have our level 22, level 28 and level 36 player hitting us, but now they all, as you can see in the red line, have 50 strength. In the yellow line, where you can see the damage that they dealt to me, you can see that the level 22 player dealt 263 damage, but the level 36 player only dealt 250 damage, while they were using the same amount of strength, 50 strength, and they were using the same weapon. So you can see that there is some form of downscaling going on. If you have a higher level and you have access to more points, you actually get less additional damage against a lower level target. This makes sense because at a higher level you also have more points available to spend. The same result was true for all the other tests that we ran here. Again, these are not super important to remember or understand. We are moving on to what is, in my opinion, much more important, which is the maximum point investment possible on each level. Now, if you look at the red line here now, you will see that the strength is no longer symmetrical. The level 15 player has a maximum of 35 points strength available. The level 22 player has 56. The level 28 player has 74, and the level 36 player has 92. These are just the normal attribute points, not including any additional gear. At this point, if you wanted perfectly fair scaling, the highest damage should actually be on the lowest level, because they all invested the maximum amount of points, so they all should scale similarly with that, but only one of them, the lowest level, level 15, has an actual level appropriate weapon, while all the others are using weapons significantly below their level, and if you wanted to keep the scaling fair, then they would have to have the same damage output with a weapon on their own level. Well, during the last beta, the opposite was true. If you look at the light attack damage here, once again in yellow, you can see that with the higher level, with the high amount of strength available to you, the damage actually increases. It goes from 234 to 319, which, if we look at the percentage increase below, is a 36% damage increase. This increase stays consistent if you increase the armor as well. The scaling works a little bit differently when using heavy attacks, but overall we see a similar picture here. So the high level player already has an advantage, but we're still using the level 15 hatchet. So I figured we should take this one step further and get everyone a weapon appropriate for their level. The level 15 player would keep the level 15 weapon, I bought a level 22 weapon for the level 22 player, and the level 36 player was using the level 35 PvP weapon. Before we get into that, a quick reminder that videos like this take a ton of time to make, and if you like to support this work, I'd much appreciate it if you consider subscribing and clicking the bell. That way I get rewarded for the work and you get updated of future videos like this. If you look closely, there are some very slight inconsistencies here because the level 35 hatchet actually had a lot of strength on it, so that increased the number a little bit here, but that doesn't matter. If you look at the difference in damage, it's not relevant. Okay, so just look at the light damage here. I don't even need to say more. You look at the yellow line. Level 15, 234 damage. Level 22, 309 damage. And level 36, 483 damage. In other words, we are talking more than twice the damage in a single basic attack. And mind you, this is just a 21 level difference, and I'm right in the middle there. You could have a much bigger level difference if you wanted to, and you know, if the target is a lower level one, then yeah, it's gonna look a lot worse than here. Now, while this gives us the cleanest data, it doesn't give us the best perspective. To keep things a little bit more relative and a little bit more in context, I figured what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put on my full PvP gear, and I'm gonna have the level 36 player Achi put on their full PvP gear. So I was pretty much almost perfectly slotted with mitigation gems and so on, and they had similarly good equipment. We had the full PvP gear, and we just hit each other to see what damage numbers we would end up with. I, the level 25 player, dealt 184 damage, while the level 36 player dealt 225 damage. You also have to keep in mind that we had different health pools. Mine was roughly 4,300 health, and theirs was roughly 5,000 health. The result? Just using basic attacks, it would take the level 36 player 20 hits to kill me, but it would take me 28 hits to kill them. That is a pretty hefty difference for only 11 levels difference between us. Additionally, you also have to keep in mind that the level 36 player likely has higher weapon mastery and therefore better weapon perks, and also has access to better health pots, meaning they will have a significantly higher amount of healing during a fight, especially now that the health pots are changed so that there's a higher flat value on them and a lower percentage value. But there are some other important takeaways here. Now I know that every time I make a video like this, it's always the argument, yeah, you're just looking at hypothetical numbers, but what if one of the players is better? Yeah, of course, if one of the players is better, then maybe they will get these extra 8 hits in and they can still win the fight. What you'll see in the background is some gameplay that I did where I was level 25 and I was fighting against level 34 players. I had some really fun fights with them and it was a good challenge and I could practice a lot, but I could also tell that there was a level difference. Even though I was able to win some of these fights, the level difference impacted the damage output that I had compared to them. And that is all those damage comparisons are really about. It's putting two hypothetical, equally skilled players against each other, and then to see who would win a fight depending on how they spec, what level they are, and so on. What's also worth keeping in mind is that the result of this tells us that the level scaling itself isn't so much of the problem, it's still part of the problem, but a very big problem are the higher tier items that you get not really being downscaled, and the same goes for the additional attribute points. If you were using gear that wasn't quite matched to your level, that may have put you at a higher disadvantage than the opponent's level itself. During the beta, I noticed that fighting some enemies felt significantly harder than others, even though they were on the same level as me or around the same range. And initially I thought that may just be player skill, but the more I played, the more I noticed that a very deciding factor was the armor and the weapons they had. Especially those who invested into the PvP gear and were around, for example, level 25, would have a massive advantage over others around their level that didn't have that gear. That is also part of the reason why I was able to keep up with the level 34 players okay. They still had an advantage in terms of the attributes that they had and some of the gear they had, but they didn't have the full level 35 PvP gear, which would have been a massive swing in their favor. So no matter what happens to PvP scaling in the future, it's definitely very advisable to keep your gear as updated as possible and invest into the PvP gear whenever you can if you're looking to PvP. As for my thoughts on these changes, I am a big advocate of having even ground PvP in the game like it was in the closed beta, because I think it entices flagging a lot more and it makes the game a lot more fun because you can outskill higher level opponents as well. So I think it should be at least partially reverted, even though there were some issues with the old system as well, where you could have an advantage by being lower level basically. So that should obviously not be the case, but there should be a middle ground more towards the closed beta side in my opinion that should feel a lot better. But yeah, now you know how the scaling really works. I hope this was insightful. Again, thanks to everyone who helped me. And if you'd like to help me too and support me in the future, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell. And if you want to help me out even more, you can share this video with your friends or rewatch it to increase the watch time, which YouTube really likes. Also, please consider checking out Rittzy, who helped me with this video and who has got some very interesting stuff, for example, new dodge cancel mechanics that we tested out, if you're interested in that, so you can check it out on his channel. As for me, I've got a ton of content planned for the next days. I probably can't even list it all. One of them, for example, will be housing planning, like where you should place your houses strategically and so on. And we'll also have a look at the higher difficulty Emrine dungeon. I will pin a link to the spreadsheet in the theory crafting channel in my Discord. Link for that is down below, along with my Twitch if you want to check that out, where I'll be streaming on release. I hope to see you for the next one soon. Duke Sloth, out.